My name is Dr. Logan Gin. I'm currently an assistant director for STEM at Brown University here in our Sheridan Center for Teaching and Learning. My dissertation research is focused on the experiences of students with disabilities. Since graduating, I've transitioned this work to working with graduate students and postdocs on professional development related to teaching and learning. So actually, I'm one of the first in my family to go to college. My older brother went on to undergraduate before me, but I am the first in my family to go to graduate school. So starting school and starting graduate school was a huge deal for me. Another accomplishment is I am a NSF graduate research fellow, and this was something I was awarded prior to the start of graduate school, but really helped me exceed in my graduate school experience. Another success, I can still remember when my first author paper was published, and this was a huge accomplishment, especially considering some of the challenges and failures that I had up until that point of graduate school. Another major accomplishment was actually defending my dissertation, and this ultimately led to the job post that I have now. And landing this first position was really something that was the icing on the cake that made my accomplishments and my work feel real and valuable. One of the major challenges I experienced in graduate school was disappointing my research advisor, and also realizing that I might have not had the experience that I thought I had coming into graduate school. So as I mentioned, I was on a GRFP, so I thought that I would easily be able to transition to the graduate school experience, such as being able to lead a project, the data collection, and driving a project forward. But in some ways, I feel like I've overestimated my ability to do this. So at the end of my first year, there was some tension with my research advisor where we were at a crossroads about what I was doing, what I wasn't doing, and what was expected of me to follow through with the projects. So as a first person to go to graduate school and having challenges with succeeding, I really hadn't realized how big of adjustment graduate school was and how to ask for help or where to ask for help, or even if it was appropriate to ask for help. So coming back to being a first generation college student, my family really didn't quite understand what I was going through. And this led to some additional conversations with my advisor about presenting at a conference and if my work was high enough caliber to even be there, even present. And that led to just a lot of self-doubt during kind of trying and challenging moments, especially in my first year of graduate school. One thing that made all of this harder was that I had peers in my lab that started around the same time as me, and others in the lab and outside of my lab and research group that were doing, at least from the outside, looked like they were doing exceptionally well. There were also senior graduate students in my lab at the time. So really just seeing others around me and comparing myself to others made my first and second year of graduate school a bit challenging. So when I thought that I was struggling, I would see them smooth sailing and not necessarily seeing the transparent challenges that they may have been going through. Ultimately, going into the summer before my second year, my advisor and I sat down. We were able to regroup and reconsider what I wanted out of my graduate school experience. So we were actually able to switch projects and shift directions to a project that allowed me to build some of those fundamental necessary skills and take some of that project ownership and kind of take the lead on a project that ultimately led to that first author publication of mine. Yeah, so initially, I know I started out with some what you would call negative coping strategies, right? I wanted to avoid the work that I was doing, avoid projects, wanted to do something else besides the work that I was doing, more or less just kicking the can down the road and hoping that there would be a success in some way or another. But then I was ultimately able to find a group of other graduate students and find community and really being able to share some of similar experiences that I wasn't necessarily seeing when I was looking at others in my peers and in my research group. So we're able to kind of leverage some of these relationships and conversations, leverage relationship with my advisor and actually some of the more senior graduate students who were having success. And then from there, I was able to communicate some of the challenges that I was facing and some of my specific needs. Also, it was really helpful to celebrate the little things and the small successes that I had in research. So this was maybe the first time that I was able to run an analysis on my own or write a method section of a paper that I could see lead to publication and useful uh, useful data as part of a project. And these were just concrete things that I was able to use to build momentum off of and really continue some of the success that I was building. Finally, another concrete thing that really helped me was formally starting therapy. So I know I had never really felt this way before. I was in a new place, a challenging environment, and therapy really prompted me to start having real conversations about these things and really discuss what I needed. One thing that I'm also really thankful for was my advisor being open to talking about mental health and really thinking about how my mental health was affecting me holistically, not only as a researcher or professionally, but also me individually. So, um, since starting therapy in graduate school, I was able to cope with some of those acute failures, but really this has become a permanent part of my life where now I do therapy consistently. I'm able to use it in a way that builds off of the high points and low points, right? I'm really able to think about how therapy and access to mental health can really become a persistent part of my life where I can build skills and navigate the challenges that come with being an academic. And ultimately, it's led to bettering my well-being. Yeah, in many ways, I'm in retrospect, I'm glad that I had this experience and that experience happened to me. It really the adversity made me stronger, right? So I had experience, setbacks, failures, and challenges with my first project. Was able to switch to projects to develop skills. And then what I'm really proud of is actually be able to go back to that initial project that I proposed, and it ultimately became a staple of my dissertation research. So once I was able to build the skills, I could approach that project with a different skill set in mind. So despite a slow start, I learned that if you take time, recenter, refocus, ask for help, use resources that are available to you, you can gain the confidence to say, yes, I can do this. And I'm just really happy that I was actually able to revisit an earlier project that I was struggling with. And it comes full circle, where in the beginning it was something I struggled with, but I also and really proud of my final dissertation that included such a project in. Everyone's path is different and everyone has different needs and challenges. But what I'd like to say is just that failure is normal, it's expected, it happens to all of us, whether we expect it or not. So the ability to fail early and fail often can give you an opportunity to learn from those mistakes, and that can just be helpful in moving beyond such mistakes. So knowing that other people are going to go through similar challenges, similar failures, not taking it personally, but knowing that it's part of a larger system of doing science can just be really helpful in approaching new scenarios and new challenges. So ultimately, I hope that you take what you've learned from failures to next experiences as it affects persistence going forward. Also, I'd just like to be clear that it's really helpful to know your network and leverage your network, knowing resources that you have access to. In particular, in my current role, I have the opportunity to advise and support graduate students through particular challenges as it relates to graduate school. And I see just how essential it is to know what offices, what resources, and what networks exist on a university campus to help you. Another thing that I would really like to note is I am someone who's navigated graduate school with a physical disability, which comes with its own obstacles and challenges, but also opportunities. And I'd just like to note that there are offices and supports here on university campuses to support students. Sometimes it takes a little bit more work and more challenge in navigating resources, especially as it pertains to graduate students and the different hats that we wear as researchers, as teachers, and as students ourselves. But I would really just like to note that there are folks who are in your corner. Thanks for watching Fail Safe Science. My name is Logan, and I hope my story normalizes failure and shows that failure can ultimately lead to successes.